We are the Group 15. Our leader and editor, Mr. Ryan Adam Belicario from BSES4B, who will be discussing about implication of natural resource in the future. Members are Mary Paul Adron from BSES4B for introduction, and I will be the one also will discuss to you about the natural resources, the future usual conflicts, issues, and problems. Ms. Renaline Bambi P. Saliente, BSES4B for proper natural resource allocation or management, and for policy basis maybe improvement of current policy. So what is future trends? Future trends, a trend is assumed development in the future that will have a long-term and lasting effect on and change something. 5 trends shaping the future of work. The first one is new behaviors shaped by social media and the web. Second is technologies shaped to the cloud collaborative technologies, big data, and the Internet of Things. The third one, the millennial workflow, new attitudes, expectations, and ways of working. The fourth one is mobility, work anytime, anywhere, and on any device. The last one is globalization, no boundaries. And now, I will be discussing about usual conflicts, issues, and problems. We are on the brink of devastating global food crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic has led to a step rise in hunger in countries already struggling with conflict, climate change, and economic turbulence. So here are the usual conflicts, issues, and problems on the food crisis in the future. First one is the population growth. From further researchers, I have gathered 4 issues that gives conflicts and problems that can cause food crisis from today on to the next decades. According to the researchers, the world's population increased from 1 billion in 1800 to 7.9 billion today. The world population growth rate declined from 2.2% per year 50 years ago to 1% per year. The conflict activities and the resulting mass displacement of people have led to reduced food supply from food-producing areas and increased food demand and relatively safe urban areas. The global food problem consists of the lack of food provision, the Earth's population. The total number of people suffering from lack of food is over 1 billion people worldwide. Researchers predicted and believe that by the year 2050, a massive increase in population and will need 7% of more food supply, the demand as well as the production of food in developing countries globally. The second one is natural resources. Shortages of water, mineral, land, and energy combined with the increased demand, population, and economic growth will create a global food shortage around 2050. There are limits to Earth's capacity to feed humanity. Even if we use available resources at maximum efficiency, the world's farmland could not support more than 10 billion people, according to Harvard social biologist Edward Wilson. Running out of rainforests and seafoods, the end of oil is also coming as expected in year 2068. Since global in oil consumption really took up around 1950. Consumption is estimated at almost 1.5 trillion barrels. Estimated reserves are about the same, 1.5 trillion barrels of oil. The use of natural resources increases like land, water, and also food production. Our resources, especially in agricultural system, is already using all the available resources. In producing food, that's why it is kept rapidly thin because of unlimited extraction of the natural resources. Without being replaced, the loss of soil, biodiversity, and increasing salinity, and some factors that have been affecting the soil that leads to reduced ability to support plant life and growing crops. Conflict-related food shortages are also entitlement failures. People lost access to land, water, and other resources necessary for them to access food they may not have growth themselves. And these deficits usually far outweigh losses in substance food production. Although the agricultural sector is typically less affected than industry. Per capita, agricultural production falls about 1.5% per year in period of conflict. In fact, conflict is the main driver of hunger in most of the world food crisis. Conflict breeds hunger. It can displace farmers and destroy agricultural assets and food stocks. Or it can disrupt markets, driving up prices and damaging livelihoods. The third one is poverty and inadequate income. The fundamental problem in food crisis remains poverty and inadequate incomes. Even in this period of tighter world food markets. There's enough food available. Many people are just too poor to afford it. Broad-based income growth is essential to reduce global hunger in a sustainable way. Elevated food prices have been dramatic impacts on the lives and livelihoods, including infant and child mortality of those already undernourished or living in poverty and spending 70 to 80% of their daily income of food. The last one is war, food as a weapon of war. This sounds weird as I included war on the issues, but as I further do research, there are a lot of researchers also believe that war could be one of the biggest problems in food crisis in the near future. On October 2021, according to arguments of the political leaders in USA, the states and in conflict zones are often repressive and starve their own population by denying them food. Modern famines are therefore crimes committed by political leaders are powerful groups who should be made accounted by law. Providing or withholding food during times of conflict can be just as potent a weapon as the guns, bombs, explosives of opposing armies. The economic cost of war weighs so impoverished citizens and local governments that unable to purchase or distribute needed good even if it is available. Food itself frequently becomes a weapon during conflict. The destruction of rural infrastructure, the loss of livestock, deforestations, the widespread use of landmines led to long-term food security problems, particularly when these factors interact with natural disasters. Is a food a weapon of war? So answering the big question if food really could be a weapon of war. Throughout history, wars have been fought over food. Sometimes these wars are bloodless, often they are brutal. Food wars began with recorded time and are still happening in the 21st century until today, as we see in some of examples in the screen of some big news today. While some food wars were economical and harmless, others replaced
proper natural resources allocation or management of the future trends. So when we say future trends, we assume development in the future that we have a long-term and lasting effect. And change something. Current developments are moving in the different direction or are testifying even more. So based on Ms. Odron report, almost 1.3 billion tons of food had been lost or waste in every year around the globe. So food waste is interconnected with globalization. Food waste is a huge loss for human being and for our being. Global food waste is a problem between financial, ethical, and environmental costs. We should teach current generation the culture of life in every aspect, including raising awareness and food waste. By the year 2050, the world will need approximately 70% more food than is currently being produced to sustain the growing world population. So, conserve food resources and achieving sustainable agriculture system. So, how we can achieve sustainable food for the future and how can we reduce food waste or loss? So, it we practice by conserve and achieving sustainable agriculture system in by 2050. Our work crops conserve food resources and achieving sustainable agriculture system. So, how we can achieve sustainable food for the future and how can we reduce food waste or loss? So if we practice to conserve and achieving sustainable agriculture system and by 2050, our crops and livelihoods are being grown and it's very useful to use and especially for the future generation.
Policy basis food crisis. Policy basis in terms of food crisis. Policy intervention suggested includes greater focus on agricultural productivity. It suggests policy action to achieve food-based economic growth. And the International Food Policy Research Institute wants to ensure the sustainable agricultural production. Below are the challenges that must be reconsidered in accordance of policy basis. First, limited financial. Second, adapting climate change. Third, growing population. And the last is reduced poverty. Philippines launched National Food Policy covering World Food Day celebration. On October 17, 2020, the PHCOP formalized its commitment to end hunger and malnutrition. PHCOP launches National Food Policy NFA 6 This is the 6K. First, review and rationalize existing policies, rules, and regulations related to zero hunger. And second, ensure available and affordable food. Third, secure nutrition adequacy. Fourth, secure food accessibility and safety. Fifth, ensure sustainable food system, food resiliency and stability. And the last, ensure information, education, awareness, and the people participation.
Apart from the topic that have been discussed already, let's go now to the natural resource economics of future trends, which is the implication. So for the researchers, I have gathered 5 common implications that are much evident and related to the study. First implication, increase in food crisis. Higher food prices lead for people to limit their food consumption and adjust to an increasingly unbalanced diet, which has a harmful effect on the health in the short term of hunger and longer term of food insecurity. So it also price may skyrocketed, thereby contribute to an increase of malnutrition. The second implication is violent conflict. The conflict activities and the resulting mass displacement of people have led to reduced food supply from food-producing areas and increased food demand in relatively safe and urban areas. This in turn has led to sharp food price rises in local markets. Also, a worldwide crisis resulting to overpricing of commodities or products that may result to over-indebt due to the widespread use of credits in buying foods. The third implication is food insecurity leads to hunger. So the malnutrition is often caused by food insecurity, but can also be caused by factors such as a poor health care or an unhealthy environment. Unsustainable and unstable economic development might be potentially a trap in any crimes, example of stealing, that might result of scarcity or worse, famine. The fourth implication is unemployment. This when a nation is insecure about their availability of food, the economy will slow down. The lack of job opportunities might lead to an increasing depth of poverty on the people already poor, rather than increased poverty head count. The fifth implication is rise in health-related costs, increased mortality rate or death toll. This means that by around 2050 and the following year of future generations that may come, the mortality rate or death toll will increase because of the world hunger crisis that people may encounter. People will not change if people will not conserve our natural resources. And that will be the end of our presentation. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.